So, Amy, our question for you today is what are the key cultural and societal differences between the US and the UK that expats should be aware of?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alice. Let me just, I've got a couple of slides as well. So let me just share my screen. So I'll start with saying moving between the US and the UK can involve a number of cultural and societal adjustments. And I'll explain just a few key ones in a second. But firstly, I thought it might be important and useful to understand and be aware of why. Why is it important to be aware of these cultural differences? If we can look well, the statistics say it all, and this is taken from a worldwide healthcare global provider. 87% of people experience some form of cultural shock when they move. What do we mean by cultural shock? We mean feeling lost, out of place in a new environment due to different customs, language, and social norms. These can lead to feelings of homesickness, 73%. Feeling isolated and burnt out. Let me move that. There we go. These are significant numbers. 98%, struggle with the relocation process, how to open a bank account, how to rent, buy a house in the UK, navigate the medical system. There's so much that people, a lot of expats I speak to, just feel completely on their own. They've got the tax advisor, they've done the immigration, they've got financial advice, but what about the day-to-day things that people need to be aware of? People are just feeling completely lost. There's a lot of overwhelming information out there. Where to start? It's a shock culturally, and it's really, really important to minimize this. The more support you have, the more you can plan, the more successful and happy you'll be in the UK, and quicker as well. I always say it can take maybe up to 18 months to actually culturally adjust to a new culture. So it's important to be aware of that and allow yourself time to get it adjusted to the changes when you move country. It's a significant step moving to the UK from the US. And, like I said about getting the financial planning done, the immigration, your visa sorted, the shippers are sorted, but the day-to-day life of making the UK feel like home is just as important. And I want to talk about some of the cultural differences today, because the UK and the US share a common language, we share the same cultural heritage, but we do differ significantly in various aspects, including government structure, the legal system, education, healthcare. But because of the expectations of the UK being so similar to the US, I have a lot of US expats that come over and actually surprised at the differences. They come over thinking it's going to be exactly the same. So I have people come over from Asia who are adapting actually surprisingly well because they expect it to be very different. They expect that everything's going to change, whereas people from America think it's going to be the same. So I'll just touch on some of the day-to-day cultural differences that have impacted some of the US expats most. So here we can see there's just a few here, and I'll briefly touch on them. Like Jamie, I could go on and on, a couple of days about these, but we'll start with communication and language. British culture being, I think Americans can sometimes come across quite direct, and they want to actually get things done. The straightforwardness is often valued more in the US, but the English language we can be filled with sarcastic and dry humour, and particularly using self-deprecation and irony is integral to British communication. We use a lot of sarcasm, and I think it's helpful for Americans, especially in the workplace, to know that. I think we can use a good example of customer service, lack of in the UK, potentially, widely. The US, there's kind of customer service, they kind of have swift resolutions, they have a real can-do attitude, they're very, potentially they can be quite, more friendly than some, I'm not saying all, some services in the UK, they're very enthusiastic, but we're very, very formal and reserved over here. So that's just something to be aware of. Day-to-day language, words such as, it's obvious, these things can be obvious, but actually can affect you more than you think. Words, faucet, taps, chips, crisps, cookies, biscuits. I seem to be using food a lot in this example. It's like time of day. But they're small, but I say they're a day-to-day constant reminder in the UK. These words constantly remind you of being back at home. And small niggles like this can get to you. They can exacerbate homesickness. So it's just something to be aware of. Cultural etiquette, the social etiquette is essential for building meaningful connections, again, particularly in the workplace and socially, to ensure that you can integrate properly in the country. Little things like queuing is taken exceptionally seriously in the UK. And the British, again, when we greet people, we can seem quite reserved and less likely to engage in small talk compared to the Americans. That's just something, a small thing of social etiquette. There's a huge topic that can be covered in this, but I'm just briefly want to touch on all of them. Work culture, work-life balance in the UK. On the whole, again, these are things on the whole, we do emphasize work-life balance more than the US. We don't work as long hours every day, and taking holidays is actually encouraged. We do have a lot more holiday and bank holidays than the US. So health and well-being is particularly in vogue in the corporate setting at the moment, and caring about employees. Other things to be aware of is hierarchy a little bit. There is a strong sense still of hierarchy in the UK, sometimes in the corporate setting. It's addressing senior staff. There is a ranking, manager, senior manager, VP, SVP. There is still some form of hierarchy. I say that, but offices are going towards open plan settings now to negate that. Other things next on the circle here is daily life and amenities. Public transport widely used, so owning a car is less common in urban areas compared to the US. Normally in the US you need a car to get around, but there is a good system of public transport here. Potentially won't maybe mention the trains at the moment. There are they're not so reliable, and navigating getting a ticket on peak, off peak is a minefield, even for an English person here. So that takes a while to get used to, just something to be aware of. Don't feel like you're on your own trying to navigate tickets. Everyone has issues here. Medical, NHS versus private insurance. That is a big difference with the UK. We do provide free healthcare. For most residents, that is what we opt for, but I think it's important to be mindful of like long waiting lists for appointments, potentially, depending where you are in the UK, and the waiting times for emergency care. Standard may be different to what you're used to in the US, but that's why private medical insurance is an option, and would encourage you to kind of look at that. But medications, we're lucky to have prescriptions that are subsidized here, if not free for certain people, which is a huge benefit that can't really be taken too much of advantage of. We're lucky in that respect. Next on the list is housing. Housing in the UK on the whole, again, are often smaller, narrow hallways, staircases, less inbuilt storage space than typical American homes. A lot of the UK homes are semi-detached, which is different to America. The process of buying a house can be quite lengthy here. Small things, again, these are small things, but they are big bugbearers when I talk to expats in the UK. Taps, faucets, we have hot and cold taps. It's very rare you get aircon in the house, particularly in the cities in the summer. It can get very hot. It's rare to get basements. These are things that come up all the time. They sound like small again, but they are always coming up, and it is the small things, the things that you need to use day to day that lead to homesickness, that lead to you wanting to return home back to the US. Sorry. Food and drink. I think this is a massive one that always comes up. British cuisine is diverse, but differs significantly from American food. Again, Americans can think it's exactly the same, but it's not. They get here and they're upset. They're longing for the familiar tastes back home. Little things. I'll go into the detail of this one. Authentic Tex-Mex cuisine, enchiladas, fajitas. Pizza's not the same. Ranch dressing, bagels. It sounds, again, minor when you talk about financial and tax, but day to day, again, it creates. You feel lonely. You feel like isolated. It takes time trying to find these things or come up with the same kind of recipes. It reminds you of your family back at home. Drinking culture, pubs are a big part of social life. Drinking culture is more prevalent after work pub visits being common, and it's these social settings in work that can often lead to building up of relationships. They are not to be overlooked. They're really, really important. Driving and transportation. Driving in the UK, people drive on the left-hand side of the road. This does take getting used to. And as I already said, owning a car in the cities is less common in the US. There's a lack of parking spaces in London specifically. It's expensive to park, expensive to drive in cities. And we do have an extensive public transport system. So why do we need to be aware of these things? Again, I spoke quite quickly there. Just wanted to cover a few of the common ones that come up with the American expats. We need to be aware of this because of this common line. This is the common typical journey that clients go through when relocating, not just to the UK, but anywhere. They go through excitement at first, they're preparing, they might be stressed, at the preparation stage, but it's still exciting. They're looking for, financial help, wealth management. They're looking for immigration, shipping, who to go to look for schools for the children, housing. They get here, they're in a honeymoon stage, like, great, wow, look at the culture of the UK, look at the historical castles, the palaces, the countryside, the quaint pubs and villages and cottages. Beautiful, they want to go, it's exciting, they want to go and visit. But it's when you start needing to try and integrate and live as a resident and stop acting like a tourist, that they experience culture shock. Some will experience it, everyone experiences it to some level. If you haven't got the support, this can last for years. You can slowly go down, trying to integrate. You're not integrating into the UK as much as you'd like. You're still feeling like a tourist. You've had no support, no plan in place, and no encouragement to navigate the UK. We're starting to slowly just try and survive. Every day you're longing to go back home. This is where you need support. You need to have a personalised plan and make sure you're kept accountable on small goals to integrate into the UK where you can thrive and perform. We want you to, enjoy life in the UK. Is a great place to be. We don't want you, you've made the step, you've had the confidence to move to the UK. That's the biggest step. Now, the day-to-day life and drudgery of it can stop you, thriving and performing. Remember, why did you come here in the first place? It's really important, but it's very difficult when you haven't got anyone there to remind you of this. It's easy to say. So how do we mitigate these effects? You want to go from being an unsettled expat to fully integrating into the UK. There's so much. It's easy to sit there at home and look online. How can I integrate and look at all the social media helps. It's got lots of ways, lots of groups to look for, but you need someone to give you the confidence to go out and do this, give you the places to look for, the right places as well. You can waste so much time trying to get into the wrong hobbies or the wrong activities. Embrace the differences of the UK, I say. Stop being, it's easy to be negative. Or in the America, they do it like this. Well, you moved from America, so, for whatever reason, just potentially try and have a positive outlook, shift your mindset. I think just after looking at those things, it's, in conclusion, understanding the cultural and societal differences is imperative to be able to adjust in the UK. You need the toolkit and the plan, the right support to shift, like I said, shift your mindset, be positive, know how to navigate the UK system, know what you need to look for, the starting point of, getting an NI number, where to go to try and set up a UK bank account, and what documents do you need. To have that all in one place is important, so you can spend the time to successfully start feeling at home in the UK. And the clarity that you have about navigating this life will reduce your culture shock, it will reduce your yearning to go back home, and will hopefully help move forward in being confident that you've made the right decision to be in the UK. That's it from me. Very quick. There's a lot to talk about.
That was great. Thank you so much, Amy. That was absolutely brilliant.